everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, staff writer Zach Everson. Zach, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me back. A lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about, and you found this sort of roundabout way that flights the Secret Service was taking is somehow financially benefiting President Trump himself. So if you could you break down that flow chart a little bit for us?
Of course. So, like all presidential candidates, the Secret Service pays reimburses the campaign for the airfare when it accompanies a candidate who gets Secret Service coverage. So we've seen this happen. This is George W. Bush, McCain, Obama, Clinton, all of that. What's different here is that Trump's campaign is renting the airplane from Trump's personal business. So what you have is the Secret Service paying. It's been about $13 million so far that they have paid the campaign. The campaign, in turn, has paid Trump's business $18 million. So, in this case, you're not just having the money go to a third-party vendor. You're having the money from the Secret Service, from the taxpayers, going to the president's business.
And 13 million, I mean, that is just a lot over the course of, I'm assuming 9 years, right? Since 2016, since President Trump was, okay. So, but talk to us.
But there is a gap in there. There is a multi-year gap in there because when he was president, they weren't paying to cover him because he was getting flown around on Air Force One. So, while it is going back to 2016, there are several years in there that they did not make any payments to the campaign at all. So it's probably for about, 7 to 8 years right there is what the payments cover.
So, I mean, even more so, I think this proves the point that seems like a lot of money for even a shorter amount of time, as you're saying, because the years that he was flying Air Force One, Secret Service wasn't charging then. I mean, how does this stack up to, because you said other presidential candidates like George W. Bush, like President Biden, like Senator John McCain, how does this stack up to what they were paying the Secret Service?
No, Trump was by and far the highest. Now, of course, we do have to adjust for inflation, but second place went to Hillary Clinton, who was at $8.8 million. And that was also a clear bump up from third place, which would have been 4.1 to Barack Obama. So Donald Trump there is far and away the one who has received the most in payments from the Secret Service for his campaign. And like I said, unlike any of those other people, that money then, he's renting, his campaign is renting the airplane from his company. None of those other candidates have their own airplanes.
So no other candidate was financially benefiting from the Secret Service, but is there any indication of why there was this disparity in the millions?
No. I mean, obviously inflation would cover part of that. But beyond that, I really didn't dive into that to figure it out.
And so can you remind us again of exactly how the president is benefiting from this? Because you break down the flow chart again, and you and I have talked about this a lot. It goes to that revocable trust. So talk to us about that revocable trust a little bit.
So Donald Trump put his businesses in a revocable trust. They did this when he was elected first time, and they said, it's okay. Has nothing to do with business. They're on a revocable trust. Well, Donald Trump is the sole beneficiary of that trust, and he's also the sole donor of that trust. Donald Trump Jr. is the trustee, and it's revocable. So Trump can withdraw at any time. I mean, it's really just kind of a little bit of a shell. It doesn't really mean he can't take any money out of there. TAG Air is his airplane company, and it is 100% contained within that trust. So that is exclusively Donald Trump's business from which he can profit from.
Are there any ethics laws then barring President Trump from touching that revocable trust now? Because you said he can touch it at any time, but has he done it, and can he do it because he's president?
We haven't seen anything. He hasn't released any financial disclosures since he has been reelected. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping him. He could just use that money for spending money or from whatever he needs at this point. So yeah, it's whether it's ethical or not, that's a judgment call. It does not appear to be illegal by any stretch. Part of the issue we're dealing with here is that he has been a groundbreaking president in terms of holding on to his business empire and even having a business empire while coming into the White House. So there's not much of a precedent to go on for somebody who has this many different business ventures and this much money tied up into all those different business ventures. So, there's really not much of a precedent there. The courts didn't rule one way or another on whether his having these businesses and accepting money from foreign governments violated the Emoluments Clause, barring the president from receiving foreign gifts. So really, it's just he can do whatever he wants by and large.
And you and I talk at length over President Trump profiting from his perch in the White House. Is this a surprise then? I'm assuming no, that he was profiting this way from his campaign.
No, we've looked at this in the past. We looked at this last year. The figure was closer to about $10 million then. Figured it was time to take another look now that last campaign cycle is finished up. So yeah, not a surprise. I mean, this is a guy who sold bars of soap that have the White House wrapper on them. He currently sells the presidential gold note on his website. This weekend, his TrumpStore.com was putting out blast of its Memorial Day sale. He was on the tarmac being interviewed in New Jersey, being asked about Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. And if you noticed, he was wearing a hat, a white Trump hat, Make America Great Again hat. That hat is for sale on his website. He's modeling off the merch. So the fact that the president is, charging the Secret Service and then reimbursing himself from the Secret Service payments to the campaign is not surprising whatsoever.
And you've reported that this isn't the only way that President Trump has benefited financially from the Secret Service over the past 9 years. Dive a little deeper into how else he's benefited from them.
Yeah, so Democrats on the House Oversight Committee put out a report, I believe it was earlier this year, that showed $1.4 million in payments from the Secret Service to Donald Trump's properties while he was president. So essentially, they were paying Trump's businesses while they were there to protect him. Eric Trump had famously said that they charge, but it's just their costs, and that is not true. You can go back and we've obtained some records from FOIA showing that the per diem is well above what the per cost rate is for a hotel room. So, the report mentioned that this is just a small little drop that they've been able to find. They think the actual payments are much, much higher than this, but this is just what they were able to get from the Secret Service.
For a lot of different businesses, when you're traveling for work, you have to adhere to certain guidelines depending on what level you're at. Does the Secret Service have any travel guidelines themselves?
Yeah, they're supposed to keep it somewhat reasonable, but unlike other government agencies, they don't have to follow just the GSA guidelines there. They need to pay what they need to pay to protect the president. So, they do have a little bit more leeway there than other government agencies.
And I know you looked at, for reference, what the Secret Service paid former President Biden. What was that number looking like?
So, yeah, this was really interesting. This came out years ago that Joe Biden was actually charging the Secret Service to rent a cottage on his property in Wilmington, Delaware. So that had been known. But what hadn't been known was that actually they stopped in 2017. We submitted a FOIA request. We got the data through October 2023. And those payments did stop in 2017. So the total that he charged them was $172,000. And that was largely monthly rent payments for the cottage going back to 2011. So yes, he was charging the Secret Service for property that he owned, but the amount was obviously much, much smaller than what Donald Trump has charged the Secret Service.
And Zach, this is a really big number, $13 million. Has the White House, has TAG Air, has anyone in Trump's orbit responded to requests for comment when you asked about it?
No, the White House spokesperson declined to comment on the record. The Secret Service rather did just confirm the figures. I originally was able to piece together the figures by looking through filings with the Federal Election Commission. The Secret Service essentially confirmed some of those. Their data was more recent than what the FEC had, and the White House did not respond to comment at all there. Or excuse me, the White House did not respond on the record, and the Trump Organization did not respond.
Zach, per usual, I appreciate the reporting. Thanks for joining me.
Look forward to joining you again.